Thank you, Dr. Rauf. Good morning to everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about science and practice in building the fitness of youth Qatari football players. This is a great opportunity to show you a brief overview of what we are doing in the clubs, what we are providing to the clubs, and particularly the impact of this work on the performance of youth Qatari football players. So as you probably know, football is mainly comprised by technical and tactical aspects, which are underpinned by a range of physical components, such as endurance, strength and power, and speed and agility. So this is exactly where we sit within the football organization. We are Excellence in Football project, 28 physical coaches distributed across the clubs, and aside of the integration with the technical staff, our main role in the club is to establish a strong strength and conditioning philosophy, of course based on the most relevant and appropriate scientific evidence. This allows us to create and develop appropriate training programs, physical training programs, which aims to improve performance and decrease injury risk. As a result of this, we expect to help players to achieve better football performance. With this in mind, I'm going to share with you just a couple of examples of how these structures applies in practice. The examination of the physical demands of the game. So if we understand the game, if we know the physical requirements of the game, we then are able to provide better and the most appropriate physical programs. So we have monitored the external load of 14 under-19 players from outside club over 10 official matches. And by using a GPS device, we were able to measure a range of different locomotor activities, as you can see in the table below. And their speed thresholds were based on Pro Zone standards, because we also aimed to compare the under-19 profile with the first team players. In terms of total distance covered, we found that under 19 players covered on average just above 9 kilometers per game, while the first team players covered just above 10. As you can see in the figure, this is not a huge difference. On the other side, we have identified a huge gap on the high intensity distance covered, as you can see in the figure on the right hand side. While under 19 players covered 500 meters per game, the first team players can cover the double of this distance. Of course, we need to consider some contextual factors, such as different match conditions and active game time, and amongst many others. However, we cannot neglect this finding, since high intensity distance or high intensity running has been considered as one of the most crucial physical element for the outcome of the game. But the question for us as a strength and conditioning coach when we have this type of finding is, how can we fill this gap? How can we make our players better? How can we improve such deficiencies? So we have created a strategy where we shift their training periodization program. So rather than they perform a traditional periodization approach, where there is a linear, let's say a linear periodization where you fluctuate the volume and intensity and you distribute the physical elements across the week, we have established an innovative training program called as block periodization. This is not commonly used in football. This approach aims to expose the players under highly specialized, concentrated training workloads over just one physical component, with the aim to induce the players on a higher physiological performance. And in order to test our idea, one group have performed the block periodization approach, and another group have performed the traditional approach. So the group that performed the block periodization were required to perform high-intensity endurance drills in addition to the football drills over 4 weeks, as you can see in the figure. And the traditional training approach adopted a regular training program over the same time. We test endurance, vertical jump, and change of direction performance before and after the training period. In terms of training design, we expose the block periodization group over 4 different small-sided games with different task constraints in order to achieve different high-intensity zones, and 1 running-based HIIT session at the middle of the week, as you can see here in the table. While the traditional approach have adopted a regular training program where they distributed the physical elements across the week. So what we found was that the group that performed the block periodization spent more time on high-intensity heart rate zones compared with the traditional approach. We also found that the block periodization group were exposed to higher training loads, as you can see in the table below. As a result of this, we found large improvement in high-intensity endurance performance for the block periodization group, as you can see in the figure on the right-hand side, while the traditional group remained stable. What is important to highlight here is that 4 weeks of highly intensified endurance training workloads were sufficient to induce high adaptations and improve their high-intensity performance without any negative impact on the neuromuscular system, since we have not found any change on vertical and change of direction performance. But as an extension of this, we also look at a different physical component. So at this time, we choose strength, and we did not add any endurance training in addition to the football sessions. So we have adopted a different range of resistance training drills over the week, such as motor control with body weight, gym sessions, vertical and horizontal plyos, change of direction drills. At this time, we found that the players were less exposed to training loads. They had lower training loads in comparison to the endurance block, to the previous block. We expected that. However, they were able to sustain their gains from the previous block after the strength block. So we were talking about 9 weeks of sustainability. So this is really, really important. I believe that the players not only improved their performance, but they became more resilient. This has a huge impact on their performance enhancement, and particularly on the injury prevention side. We did not find substantial change in vertical jump performance, while large improvements in change of direction performance were observed, as you can see in the figure on the right-hand side. Just before I conclude, I'd like to pause here a little bit. As an extension of the previous examples that I presented to you, this is the long-term Qatari player development pathway that I'd like to introduce to you. This is a 100-page document that has been created by the Excellence in Football Project staff over the past years with a lot of effort. This document describes the path or the curriculum of each physical component and aims to address the needs of each category, of the youth of the entire academy. So I just would like to congratulate our staff for this document. And to conclude, then, the take-home message is, understanding the demands of the game and the use of evidence-based practice allows us to build a strong strength and conditioning philosophy. This approach may help coaches to build an appropriate physical program to maximize the physical potential of the youth Qatari players in a short and a long term. Thank you very much for your attention.